A Kentucky man who was the first defendant to breach the U.S. Capitol building on January 6 will spend the next 53 months behind bars. Michael Sparks was sentenced today for his part in the 2021 Capitol riot. He'll also have to pay $2,000 in restitution. He was found guilty back in March of felony and misdemeanor charges, including obstruction of an official proceeding. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins us from outside the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. Scott, what factors weighed in the sentencing, and did he say anything? Did he express any remorse?
This really was a landmark case because he was the first of the hundreds of rioters to enter the Capitol, the first one to face off with police, the first one ahead of the mob. But prosecutors argued successfully, getting nearly exactly the prison term they were seeking, is that Michael Sparks was the tip of the spear, emboldening others, getting others to follow him, even if he wasn't trying to get others to follow him, and that he knew exactly what January 6 was. That he had been saying since the election in 2020 that January 6th was a pivotal moment. It's when Congress certifies the election, and that led him to that place on that day. Michael Sparks, for his part, says he is remorseful for how this impacted his family, his wife, his kids. He's remorseful that he was there and it didn't make a difference, but says he's not remorseful for going that day and having his voice heard. He joins a growing list of January 6 defendants who, when they express remorse, don't say they're sorry to those injured, those impacted directly inside the Capitol, but sorry to their families and sorry something different didn't come of it. That landed with the judge in such a way that the judge sentenced Michael Sparks to nearly exactly what prosecutors were seeking, 4.5 years.
Scott, you have been covering the January 6 riot cases for years at this point. What has stood out to you about this particular trial?
A few different things. First of all, at the moment of sentencing, a U.S. Capitol Police sergeant few of us have heard from before testified to the judge asking for a stern sentence.
Wow.
He was the first to come face-to-face with a rioter that day. He was the first to come face-to-face with Michael Sparks, and he made that pivotal decision, Lindsay, not to pull his firearm, not to open fire. Prosecutors celebrated that decision today, saying it averted a bloodbath. But the police sergeant testified that he's not only concerned, obviously, for the police officers injured, but for the tragic suicide deaths of other officers, but also said two more things: that democracy remains fragile at this moment, and that the public has suffered a burden from January 6th, not just the police responders. That leveled the room, Lindsay, as he spoke before the sentencing.
Very interesting to hear law enforcement describe it that way. Scott, what other January 6 related cases are you watching?
A couple notes from today. The judge in this case, Tim Kelly, estimated, or at least hypothesized, there could be 500 more cases to come. Still not charged, still not arrested, hundreds more arrests, and that's quite something, more than 3.5 years after the crime itself. But some of the January 6 defendants referred to Donald Trump as a fellow J6er. His case is going through this same courthouse for election interference. There are court filings expected this week in that case, Lindsay. The special counsel likely to tell what he's going to do next with his now slimmed down post-Supreme Court ruling case. And the next hearing is next Thursday, September 5th, right here at the courthouse. The
election interference case slimmed down because of the Supreme Court ruling issuing immunity for presidents of acts taken during official office. Scott MacFarlane, thanks so much.